there. Welcome to Authenticity Unleashed, where we dive into what it is to get real, to shed all the parts that aren't us, to let go of all the people pleasing, all the doing to get accepted by others, and to return home to being the most authentic version of ourselves so that we can live with fulfillment in our lives. And today, we're talking about a really important topic, something that I hear about from so many people and something I've experienced myself many times: imposter syndrome. So, imposter syndrome, if you've had it, you know it. That sneaky feeling that creeps up when you're just a little further along than you've been before. Maybe when you're even at the top of your game and that it's like someone's going to pull the curtain back like in the Wizard of Oz and let everybody know that you don't have any business being there, that someone's made a mistake. You start thinking things like, who am I to be leading this project? Who am I to be offering a podcast where I give advice to people? Who am I to be running this company? Imposter syndrome not only makes us doubt our abilities and accomplishments, but it can help us to stay small. It can keep us from playing at the next level. And so it's very important that we start to look at it, confront it, and find ways to move beyond imposter syndrome. I told you that I've experienced it many times in my life, as far back as when I started teaching yoga. And I thought every teacher needed to have trained in India or they weren't a real teacher, including me. So therefore, I was walking around afraid that someone would find out that I didn't go to India to get my teacher training. When I started my first yoga studio, I thought, who am I to run this business? There are so many experienced yogis out there that could do better than me. And then I started to run my first teacher trainings and had the same thing happen when I expanded into coaching and leadership development. And when I wrote my book, that was crazy. I thought, I'm not an author. Who is going to want to hear what I have to say? It came in full on. But there's a couple of things that I noticed. It happens every time I venture further than I've been before. And in some way, when we realize that, it's helpful because it's not that we're an imposter in this new land. It's just that we're new to this new land. We're newly arrived and getting our bearings, and we have to teach our nervous system that it's actually going to be okay. As we get accustomed to that new space, the imposter syndrome starts to subside. So when we can recognize, first off, that this feeling of imposter syndrome is often just our nervous system setting off alarm bells saying, this is not normal. This isn't what we do. I'm here to keep you safe, and I'm not sure this feels safe. Maybe you should just play small and go back to what you know. So knowing that is great. And there's more. Along the way, I've noticed a couple of things that could really change how you think about expressing yourself in the world and sharing your unique gifts and the importance of you doing it in your own unique way and not feeling like an imposter. There's lots of new age ideas about how to overcome imposter syndrome, but I found that the solution for me was actually in the past. I've discovered that the key to overcoming it isn't about chasing the next big thing or listening to another podcast. It's about embracing the wisdom of the ages. Now, I've read hundreds of books, including many spiritual texts over the years. I'm a really avid reader. In fact, I read over 50 books a year. But there was a time when I read books, and I would read books like the Bhagavad Gita or the Yoga Sutras or the Tao Te Ching so that I could tell people that I read them, as though it would give me, entry into some intellectual or spiritual club. It was a way that I tried to validate myself. I wasn't really taking in the knowledge, the ancient wisdom that was on those beautiful pages. And eventually I moved on to modern psychology and personal development and human behavior and leadership books. And I started to just notice the more that I read, the more I could see similarities in all of the books. I started to remember some of the readings from the ancient texts and say, hey, that's kind of like this. I started to see patterns. And then I was actually truly interested. And I went back to those ancient texts, the Yoga Sutras and writings from Marcus Aurelius and the great philosophers, and even dove into indigenous spiritual teachings. And I started to look for something between them all, these common threads. And then I went back to more recent history, not like way back in the dark ages, and I reread books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. I'd read them before, but it was more like an exercise in just getting it read than it was really soaking in the wisdom. But now I had a mission. I was looking at how these new age books and these old books were similar. And what I found was that they were all these new books, all these new teachings, all these great teachers out there. They're just sharing their personal interpretations of universal truths that have been here all along. And they're all valuable. They're all valuable. Think about it. Throughout history, from ancient spiritual teachings to wise philosophers and transformational leaders, the secrets to personal development and living a fulfilled life have been right in front of us all along. As they say, there's nothing new under the sun. In today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with the pressure to innovate, and sometimes we think that means that we have to come up with totally original thoughts or ideas or we're going to get left behind. So it's easy to forget that success isn't about reinventing the wheel. It's actually about tapping into our true selves and sharing that authentically with the world. Imagine this. What if we saw value in our own unique perspectives? Because all of the books of the past are simply someone's perspective or interpretation of wisdom that already existed. What if we realized that we're not imposters for building on existing knowledge, but rather we're just adding our own flavor to the mix? One of the things I most love to do is to take thoughts and ideas and to filter them through my own unique experiences and pull them apart in a way that's meaningful to me. No one else on the planet has had my experiences, and therefore they won't see the ideas in the unique way that I do. And what if my unique perspective has benefit? What if the very way that I experience that thought, the idea, or the teaching in itself is an innovation? And what if I never shared that with the world? If you look at all the greats out there who are beacons of success, and I'm talking like think Tony Robbins and Oprah, they're not sharing any original ideas. You can find everything they share in the ancient wisdom. They're sharing what inspires them, what works for them. And most importantly, they're sharing these teachings, these universal truths from their unique perspective. And maybe, as in Tony Robbins' case, with his unique system of understanding it. They didn't invent wisdom. They share wisdom. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants, soaking in the wisdom of those that came before us. And you know what? It's when we take that wisdom and infuse it with our own essence that we truly break free from imposter syndrome. When I recognized that everyone was borrowing wisdom from someone who came before them, I stopped putting others on pedestals. And when I stopped putting others on pedestals, I became aware that what I have to share is just another beautiful expression of the bits of wisdom that I've been fortunate enough to gather, and that my expression is just as valuable as anyone else's. And then I start to think, well, if not me, then who? Who would share this perspective? And who am I not to share? Who am I not to shine a light, to contribute, to leave some kind of legacy that about my experiences on the planet that could benefit others? Because that's what all the ancient wisdom was doing, leaving experiences to benefit others. I remind myself of the hundreds of times that people have said to me, Pam, I came to this yoga class of yours one time and you said this thing and it changed my life. Or, we had a conversation in a session one time and this question you asked or this thing that you shared with me, it changed how I looked at everything. And most of the time, I don't even remember what they're talking about or what I said. But I know that if I had withheld those things because I felt like an imposter or I didn't have the right to say what I needed to say or share what I wanted to share, then those lives might not be touched in the way that they were. And I'm not willing to withhold what could be medicine for someone because I'm playing small in the world. So getting over imposter syndrome involves us recognizing that we're all imposters to some degree. We're all borrowing knowledge from the past. And though we can add our own flavor, expanding upon and adding to the universal truths and wisdom of the ages and making sense of it all in today's world, is just what we're all trying to do. Take the pressure off yourself. You're doing just fine. You're not an imposter. You're a beautifully unique individual who has experienced life in your particular way. And you showing up to share your brand of wisdom might just be the medicine for someone else. So here's the deal. Let's embrace our journey of self-discovery, knowing that each of us, our voice matters. Let's step into our authenticity and share our truth with the world, share our ideas, share our thoughts, and step unapologetically into the next levels of life, knowing that we will encounter that new space and our nervous system will take some time to get accustomed to the new air. But eventually we will. And that each time we share authentically, we're leaving a legacy. That's what I have for you today, folks. I hope this gives you some food for thought. Thanks so much for tuning in to Authenticity Unleashed. If you like the show, please share the show. Give us a rating so that we can grow the show. And most of all, if you got value from this, send it to someone you know, because my goal is to empower others to live their most authentic and beautiful lives. Bye for now.